Good morning, all. This is Jack from Charting the Markets, and this is the Bigger Picture webinar for the morning of Wednesday, the 11th of March. My disclaimer, I do this for educational purposes only. I'm here to share my technical analysis with you. I hope you can take some of what I'm doing and learn from it, transfer it to your own charts, and I'm not here to issue trading signals. This is a video for paying subscribers at ctmthebiggerpicture.substack.com. It's published on YouTube after a delay of a week. All right. Okay, we've seen a big rally. I was talking about this on Sunday night and saying that the way all the equity indices were so far below the 3SD lower band that, generally speaking, in the absence of really bad news, we would see a strong rally, and we have seen a strong rally. So let's have a look and see how we're doing from here. We had a couple of buy signals, I think, that made target. We have a couple of weak sell signals here, and we've got a weak 60-minute sell signal fixed on NQ. We got another one on DAX, which has now reached the possible near-miss target overnight. Nothing on RTY, nothing on YM, nothing on ESTX, and nothing on N225. We're seeing a retracement of some of this rally. Got some 15-minute sell signals which fixed yesterday and made target. But the bottom line is, of course, the Iran war. Well, it only takes one person to start a war, one country to start a war by attacking. It takes two to end the war, and Trump is making Witkoff contact the Iranians and talk about a ceasefire, and the Iranians aren't currently interested. That's not altogether surprising. The new leader in Iran is obviously the son of the old one, Khamenei. He's lost his mother, father, wife, and one of his children to the US and Israeli strikes over the last few days. And, well, that's the sort of thing that can make people a little grumpy and difficult to negotiate with. And, well, he's not interested at the moment. I'm thinking this may be settling in for a longer conflict. There are some interesting things which are happening, and some of those will have an impact on the markets. It does. Iran. You might have noticed that Trump was saying last weekend that the Iranians had surrendered to the other Middle Eastern countries. What actually happened was Iran said, if you stop allowing the Americans to attack from your territory, then we will stop attacking you. And I think the other Middle Eastern countries around, who are all extremely vulnerable, are giving this some serious thought and may well do it. Now, Iran also said that in the event that they did that and stopped allowing the Americans to base themselves on their territories while they're attacking Iran, then they would allow the ships from those countries to go through the Strait of Hormuz. So that is interesting, because the other Middle Eastern countries who were not consulted on this war and are not too happy about it, and particularly not too happy that the US struck one of the desalination plants in Iran last week, and Iran then struck the one in Bahrain and said these were now legitimate targets because the Americans had done it. Iran gets 3% of its water from desalination plants, and most of the other Middle Eastern countries in the area, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, UAE, Dubai, these are getting somewhere between 60 and 80%. Not 3%, 60 to 80% of their water from desalination plants, which are big, take a while to repair, and without which they're either shipping in a vast amount of water, or their countries become semi-uninhabitable. So from their point of view, obviously they've got a very big incentive to make peace with Iran and move on and kick the Americans out. So I think that may well be happening in the next few days. That may well mean that we've got a lot of we start getting decent flow through the Strait of Hormuz, which could prevent obviously a big longer term problem with oil. But we will see how that goes. What I would say is that yesterday I was reading that the Iranians are starting to mine the Strait of Hormuz. So we will see how this develops, but it may well. But if they mine the Strait of Hormuz and basically it is closed for a long period, that obviously could have a significant impact. Yet to be seen. Not only because the Strait of Hormuz is closed, but because because some of these countries, or possibly all of these countries, might have to start suspending their oil extraction operations, which could again have a big impact on the market. Now, as I was saying on Sunday, there are significant quantities of reserves, strategic reserves in Europe and America. Not as high as it should be in America, because mystifyingly they didn't actually refill their reserve when prices had got down into the 50s, but nonetheless pretty sizable. So, but again, we may well see a big impact there. So that's where we are on equities. Let's have a look at the bigger picture charts. And hang on, wait a second. Right, let's have a look at the daily charts, where we actually rallied quite a lot, opened slightly above the 3SD lower band on Monday, and have got back up and have back tested the daily middle band yesterday. That is the classic area to see a reversal. We are so far seeing a reversal. Don't have really anything on the hourly charts. On the 15-minute charts, we had RSI 5 sell signal fix yesterday and make target. We've still got a head and shoulders, which is broken down with a target in the 65.40 area. And given the state of conflict at the moment, I'm not seeing any particular reason to think this would be heading straight back to the highs. Looking at the Qs again rallied back over the 3SD lower band. We did see a move below it on Monday, but not much. We then closed back above the daily middle band on Monday and Tuesday, but only marginally above. We saw a move up yesterday, which got pretty close to the 50 DMA, which at the moment is the key resistance on the Qs. Looking at the hourly charts, no current divergence. On the 15-minute chart, again, we had an RSI 5 sell signal, which played out yesterday from the high. Looking at Dia, Dia has been the slowest off the ground. We still managed to get back above the 3SD lower band for the open. I was talking particularly about how this was going to be opening a long way below the 3SD lower band, and that's not something you normally see. If you see big declines, generally speaking, you have some time for the Bollinger Bands to widen before that happens, and certainly that is happening on Dia, where it's now widened considerably. We will see how that develops. We have got an RSI 14 buy signal fixed on the hourly chart here. On the 15-minute, we had another RSI 5 sell signal fixed on the 15-minute chart, which played out yesterday afternoon. All right, let's have a look at the IWM chart. Right, IWM. We actually opened slightly below. This was the only one which actually opened below the 3SD lower band. We've gone back up. We have the daily middle band at 261, so we've not got close to a back test of that, but we've been hanging around the 2SD lower band. But again, we're seeing a significant amount of widening of the middle band of the bands here. So we will see how that develops. This RSI 14 sell signal has now reached the possible near miss target. Hourly chart, no current divergence. 15-minute chart, we had again an RSI 5 sell signal fixed yesterday afternoon and has made target. On DAX, this is interesting because you've actually got an RSI 5 buy signal that's fixed on DAX, and we've reached a possible head and shoulder neckline almost exactly, and we could be forming a right shoulder here. So I'm wondering, if I was looking at this in isolation, I'd be wondering about more rally here, or at least more time for a rally and a test of the daily middle band. Not quite sure what to think here, because it's possible that we may actually just be resuming this downtrend within a day or two. On US equities. In terms of Nikkei, we've also got a possible RSI 4-5 buy signal brewing, and we haven't reached the possible near miss target yet on the RSI 14 sell signal that had fixed. But again, I am wondering about a bit more rally here. We do again have a potential head and shoulders forming here, but not as nice as the one on DAX. All right, let's have a look at DX. Okay, DX had a head and shoulders here, which broke down. Week 6-minute buy signal has reached the possible near miss target. I'm wondering whether we might see this breakdown. I've got more to say about this on the daily chart. Looking at the Euro USD, we've got an IHS which is, a double bottom which is trying to break up. and could fail. Little head and shoulders here, which is also broken down and maybe reversing. Week 6 minute sell signals reached the possible near miss target. Not a lot to say really on GBP USD, USD JPY. Nice uptrend here. If the dollar goes higher, I'd be looking ideally for a test of the of that previous high you can't see on this chart at 162 to make a potential double top there. USD CAD, very strangely, has not really been rising particularly with the dollar, and at the moment this looks like, well, this is a bear flag channel. It's a perfect channel and it's a very nice one. And at the moment we are forming what looks like an awful lot like a bearish triangle. Setting up at least to retest this low, but on a retest that low, if we broke below this trend line here, this flag would have a target at a retest of this low here in about the 1.348 area. Watching that with great interest. Possible double top on Australian dollar. NZUSD kind of looks like a flag, but not reading an awful lot into that. All right, let's have a look at those on the bigger picture charts. Okay. Right, the first thing to say on the US dollar is we've now got an RSI 5 sell signal fixed on the daily. And we've got a little, because of that move up here, we've got what looks like not a head and shoulders, but a double top here, which is trying to break down on the US dollar daily chart. That could deliver, although at the moment, bad news on the war has generally been positive for the US dollar, and at the moment, well, we're still mainly seeing bad news on the war. So we will see how that develops. In terms of euro, a little bit of positive divergence here. Very weak possible 60-minute buy signal brewing. RSI 5 buy signal brewing on the daily. On GBP USD, no divergence and hasn't really been doing a great deal. USD JPY, I'd like to see a retest of this high here at 162, as I was saying. No current negative divergence. We did have some RSI 5 negative divergence, but we've lost that. USD CAD, very interesting looking flag we've got down here. If we are going to go lower, that would generally be, well, the dollar was also going lower, but it's kind of detached from the dollar over the last few days. On Australian dollar, nice looking little double top. NZ, we've got an RSI 5 buy signal, which has fixed. Here, I think. Let me just check the divergence on that. Nope, it's not legit. We don't have a buy signal brewing that. Oh, no, so I'm just going to write that out. All right, I was just thinking I didn't look quite right. All right, so that's where we are on currencies. Mainly, I think we're probably going to get more bad news on the war over the next few days. I don't think the Iranians are going to be particularly keen to finish, and I think all the Middle Eastern allies who are extremely vulnerable to attack from Iran may well bail on the US over the next few days, which is going to look bad for the administration, but it would be entirely understandable for the Middle Eastern allies. Let's see. All right, looking at bonds. ZB, we had a weak 60-minute sell signal, and that's reached the possible near miss target. On the bigger picture, we've got a head and shoulders, which has broken down with a target in the 113.27 area, and that has not been invalidated. Looking at ZN, this looks like a short-term bear flag forming, and of course, we've got a head and shoulders here too, which is also broken down with a target in the 111.06 area. All right, looking at those, looking at bonds on the bigger picture. All right, TYX. We had a buy signal on TYX, and that has made target. We've managed to get back over the daily middle band, so this is weak for the dollar, but obviously, it needs to push on from this if we're going to see a significant uptrend. In terms of the TNX daily chart, again, we had a buy signal again on the RSI 5. Again, that has already made target. This looks like a triangle, and it looks as though the obvious next move would be a move up. So waiting to see if we get that. It also looks like, hang on, we've got an RSI 14 sell signal fixed on the hourly chart, suggesting a bit more upside for bonds and downside for yields before in the near future. FYX, we've got another triangle. TLT, TLT, we've got a nice looking double top here. That's not to say it's necessarily going to play out, but we're back below the daily middle band, and we will see how that develops. But obviously, if we are going to see a significant move up in yields, which is what the triangles are suggesting, that would involve a significant move down on bonds, and this TLT pattern is, at the very least, very promising for seeing that. All right. Okay, let's move on from bonds and go on to oil. All right, CL. We've had one hell of a few days on here. I was saying, as I was doing the webinar, as we were reaching, I think, the 120 area on Sunday, that really I thought this was one. I did say there were potential higher targets from the flags, which we'll look at in the bigger picture. But I was also saying that there were these strategic oil reserves, and that closing the Strait of Hormuz, there were possible alternate routes that could be used that had been planned in case this ever happened, and that therefore this might not have a big long-term impact, even if the Strait of Hormuz was closed for a significant period, as long as, of course, the countries around Iran remain habitable, because they still have water, of course. So it's probably quite urgent that they make peace. Otherwise, we really could have some serious problems here. But in the short term, we've seen a big retracement here. We've got a pretty decent-looking bottoming setup here, so this could be a double bottom, setting up a move which could take us back up into the 105, 1 into 110 area. And we do have a weak 6-minute buy signal, which is fixed. And we've got one of those on HO. And a nice looking double bottom here. RBOB, we also have a nice looking double bottom. That actually was the laggard yesterday, but that has caught up since. So we've got some nice bottoming patterns here, and they're looking as though they may break up. And we've also got a weak 6-minute buy signal fixed on oil. So I think some of the downside yesterday was on the basis of basically fake news. The administration announcing that one of the being blamed on a staffer, but there was an announcement yesterday that the U.S. Navy was had escorted a tanker through the strait. That wasn't true. Basically, there is no traffic through the strait at the moment, and the Iranians are in the process of mining it, which isn't particularly encouraging for it resuming anytime soon. Nice looking double bottoms on all of the oils here. We may well see those play out over the next couple of days. On NG, we broke up from an inverted head and shoulders here, and that has got almost 3/4 of the way to the target, and then pulled back sharply. 6-minute sell signals reached possible near miss target. I'm watching the right shoulder low, which is in about the 2.8829 area. So if we get below 2.88, this IHS will have failed, and I'd be looking for a retest of the low. But I think this might still have legs. Certainly, an awful lot of liquefied natural gas is going through the Strait of Hormuz, or at least was going through the Strait of Hormuz. So it should have an impact on the market, but it hasn't had much of an impact so far. All right, let's have a look at those on the bigger picture charts. And on WTIC, obviously, we had an IHS breakup, and that has, sorry, I need to move the bubble, sorry. And obviously, we made the IHS target, the double bottom target, very, very, very confidently. And we made it almost up, given that this is a possible bull flag, we made it almost up to the bull flag target at a retest of 126.42. Haven't made that yet. If we retest the high, which might not be happening, but we could get a possible daily sell signal break. All right, looking at heating oil. Heating oil, we broke up from an IHS, and that made target pretty much immediately. In terms of this being a bull flag, which is, I did note this one and the gas oil one are a little high for that, but we got pretty close to the all-time high here at 4.46, and that might be in range. In terms of gas oil, again, if we saw a retest the high, then we could set up some nice looking daily sell signals. In terms of gas oil, we had this double bottom break up and make a target. We got a potential larger double bottom here, and we got a potential flag target up at 412. I'm a little skeptical about this, so I wouldn't be surprised to see that not deliver. The main patterns have already delivered, but obviously, if the Strait of Hormuz is closed for an extended period, and and the war continues. Well, Iran was talking about driving the oil price up to 200, and that could be in range. Obviously, the all-time high on oil here is at 147.27, and that would certainly be doable. In terms of getting to 200, in terms of adjusted for inflation, that wouldn't actually be a retest of even of this high here at 147.27. So we are talking about potentially makeable numbers. But I think we have to see how the war develops. In terms of natural gas, really, on the bigger picture, I mean, I've seen some alarming charts of how much natural gas has moved. This is nothing. We have barely retraced much. We haven't really even done a minimum 38% Fibonacci retracement of the move down here from 5.65. So you can just about see the inverted head and shoulders here, which is broken up, and we will see how that develops. But so far this hasn't really moved much. And an awful lot of gas does get transferred through pipelines. Of course, that doesn't go through the Strait of Hormuz. So I'm not sure how much impact this will have. Certainly, this has had much bigger impact on the natural gas prices in Europe, as they have a separate market. All right, let's have a look at precious metals. And on GC, this looks like a bear flag forming. The wedge broke down, bear flag. I'd like to see a retest this low near the monthly pivot. On SI, this overall looked like a wedge, which may well have been a bear flag. And short term, it looks like we're forming a bear flag here too. Kind of looks like a double bottom on palladium or possible IHS forming. We had some sell signals; those reached the possible near miss target. I had a buy signal on palladium, which reached the possible near miss target. This looks like another flag. And on HG, the very nice triangle broke down and didn't quite retest the low. And I'm leaning towards seeing a retest of that low, which would be the triangle target. We've got a little double top here, which is trying to break down. We've got a weak 600 sell signal that's already reached the possible near miss target. All right, let's have a look at those on the bigger picture charts. And let's have a look at gold. All right, gold. We're holding the Dana middle band here. Nothing much of any exciting is happening. As I've been saying before, I think this could be a significant interim high, and I'm thinking we could do a larger retrace. That might involve a retest of the high first, setting up a potential level top. Well, I'd be skeptical about that making target. But this could again be an ABC, in which case this wouldn't be a bad time to be starting the C wave. In terms of silver, silver again leaning towards seeing lower. Wondering if this whole thing has been a bear flag forming. Looking at palladium. Palladium, again, wondering about lower. Platinum, wondering about lower. And on copper, we should see a bit lower because we saw that triangle broke down. But really, this has been we've been trading in a fairly compressed range. Looking at GDX, we've got an RSI 14 sell signal fixed and an RSI 5 sell signal fixed. On GDXJ, haven't got the RSI 5 sell signal fixed. We've also got the RSI 14 sell signal fixed. I'm thinking these play out on the next leg down on precious metals. In what I said, well, I'm thinking this may well be a bull flag forming on the precious metals overall, but I am thinking it's about time we saw a decent retracement, and I'm thinking this isn't a bad setup to get that. We will see how that goes. We do have potential level tops forming on GDXJ and GDX. We'll see. All right, let's have a look at the other commodities and KC. KC, we've got a double bottom, which is broken up with a target in the 308 area. That could be failing. We will see. We've got a 60-minute sell signal fixed, and that's getting close to the possible near miss target. On looking at sugar, we had an IHS which formed and broke up and failed, and we've got another IHS which has formed and broken up, and that's got a same target at a retest of the December high, because that is the high in the preceding trend. Looking at CC, CC. Possible bottoming action, not really seeing a clear pattern here, to be honest, though. So wondering if we might pull back and see a right shoulder. No current negative divergence. I am wondering if this is just a flag setting up a resumption of the downtrend. On CT, we had a double bottom which broke up with a target in the 65.95 to 66.15 area. liking that target and not seeing any reason to think we won't make that. Looking at lumber, lumber possible double top forming here, 60-minute buy signal reached possible near miss target, slightly below the monthly pivot, which so far have obviously not been quite tested, but either way is holding. Looking at ZW. We've seen a sharp move off the high here and a nice looking little double bottom and a weak 6-minute buy signal fixed. I'm thinking this double bottom might play out, but I would note that on the bigger picture, we've got a daily sell signal fixed here now. And we've got another one, I think, on corn. Again, we saw a retrace. Again, we're seeing a bounce. And again, we might be setting up to go lower. On soy, may well be retesting this high. Could be the second high of a double top when we get there. We might be reaching some sort of an interim high on grains generally, on ZL the same. On live cattle, we could be setting up to go a bit lower. We have retraced enough of the move up on this rising wedge, so I am keeping an open mind as to where we go from here, but I'm thinking we may well resume the uptrend. We shall see. HE may resume the uptrend too. This could be an ABC waiting for another leg down, but I wouldn't be surprised to see this resume the uptrend as well. All right, let's have a look at those on the bigger picture. And on coffee, this double top here broke down and pretty much made target, but not quite. We've got a potential larger double top here with a rather improbably ambitious target down in the 140 area. I'm skeptical about that making target, but I wouldn't be surprised to see this go lower. On the daily chart, we had an RSI 5 buy signal, and that made target. Little bit of negative divergence here, and I think that is, I haven't marked it in yet, but I think there's a weak RSI 5 sell signal that is fixed. Looking at sugar, bigger picture chart, obviously we've got a target down here in the 9 area from this head and shoulders. We do have an RSI 5 buy signal, which is pretty close to fixing on the monthly chart, but obviously can't fix till the end of the month. On the weekly chart, we've got a possible weak RSI 14 buy signal brewing on the and potentially interesting trend line, but not that interesting. Looking at the daily chart, we've got a weak RSI 5 buy signal that's fixed and hasn't reached the possible near miss target yet. So I'm thinking we might see a bit more rally here. Not convinced it's going to amount to a great deal. In terms of cocoa, we're seeing a bit of a rally here after a very strong decline. Now, we've actually got in, I did say when we got down to the 3,000 area that we might start seeing some bottoming action because we'd reached the longer term area where price used to live. So after this wild spike up into the 13,000 area. So we are seeing a bit of a rally here. I've got a weak RSI 14 buy signal fixed. The weak RSI 5 buy signal has now made target. I am thinking we may well see some more rally here, and we're trying to get back over the daily middle band at the moment. On wheat, we've been seeing a bit of retracement after we've broken up from a little level bottom here, and with it, well, when I say little, it's actually quite large, but the scale of this decline was pretty monstrous. So I'm still thinking this has got a shot, but I'm thinking we might be doing a retracement. You often do after you break up from a pattern. On wheat, we've got an RSI 14 sell signal fixed on the daily. On corn, we haven't got one fixed on the daily. Didn't quite make that, but on wheat, we've got one fixed on the daily, and we're seeing some retracement. We're back testing the daily middle band. That could be it, but the sell signal is suggesting we're going to see more. On corn, we've got a very nice looking double bottom, but this one hasn't broken up yet. We do have a potential little level top here, which I'm keeping an eye on, and could actually set up, if we saw a big enough retracement, set up a retest of this low. Looking at soybeans, no current divergence on the weekly chart. Has been having a wild time to the upside. No current divergence on the daily chart. Not really come down a lot from the highs. On cotton, we've got another beautiful double top here, but we've been just drifting sideways for the last 8 months or so. Nothing really happening on the daily chart. We've got a weak RSI 5 sell signal that's reached a possible near miss target. We've seen a bit of a bounce here. We are holding the daily middle band as support, but it's not really particularly exciting. Looking at lumber, overall downtrend, I think we've got a bear flag forming here. That hasn't broken down yet, but when it does, it would have a target in the 352.5 area. And if it does break down, well, we've already got a double top, which is broken down with a target in the same area. So bigger picture, that's what I think we're looking at. But again, we've been doing a lot of drifting sideways. In terms of the daily chart, we've got an RSI 5 buy signal fixed, and that may deliver some more upside, although it's looking a little fragile. All right, great. In that case, let's have a look at crypto. Okay, and all right, looking at Bitcoin, am I still thinking this is a bear flag forming? Yes. This looks like a bear flag forming. We've got a nice looking bear flag on the soybean chart, on the Solana chart, and that has broken down slightly here. I'm thinking if we get a move down on equities and move up on oil and so on from bad war news, of which there is no shortage at the moment, then we're probably going to see the low retest that these flags are suggesting. And that would be an opportunity to have a significantly larger rally. We will see how that goes, but we've got another bear flag type setup on Ethereum too. I'm not seeing, I've been asked about, on the war and how does that impact it. These flags were forming before the war started, and for all I know, they may be forming on after the war ends. But I think there's a good chance we're going to reach the retest of these lows while on the basis that the war is ongoing. There's no particular sign of it stopping, and that may give us our low retest here, and that could give us a potential larger rally setup. We will see how that goes. All right, great. In that case, I think that's a wrap. Everyone take care. I'll catch you guys again on Sunday.